Don't forget to watch this video until the very end, as I have a really exciting announcement I can't wait to share with you all there. Cool? Cool.
The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, to give this land its full, proper title, is a nation with way too many names. It's something that's an eternal point of interest to many people. We have the full name I just mentioned, which is often shortened to just the United Kingdom, or shortened even further to just the UK. But we also have the term of Great Britain, which is the geographic name for the largest island that makes up this nation. This name of Great Britain can also be shortened to just Britain or GB. And on top of these names, we have the four names of the countries that make up this larger country: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It can all get very confusing and silly, that's for sure. Luckily, the UK is a rather silly place. And to add to that silliness, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you, as there is another name that this nation goes by too, that being the one this video is all about: Blighty. Have no fears, however, as despite Blighty being a name for this land, it isn't an official name of any sort, but a nickname instead. You won't be finding the name Blighty on any official documentation like passports and such. Blighty at first might seem like a simple diminutive of the name of Britain, and I imagine that's where most people would presume this name came from, myself included before I researched this video. That, however, is not the case. Blighty is a name that has a lot more history to it, as opposed to just being a simple adaptation of the name Britain. Before we look into the origins of the name Blighty, we have to ask ourselves, what can we even call Blighty? As mentioned, the United Kingdom is a nation with an awful lot of names, and most of those names only apply to certain parts of the nation. E.g., you can't call all of the island of Great Britain England, unless you really want to rustle some Scottish and Welsh feathers, that is. So what parts of this country does the term of Blighty apply to? Well, unlike the rest of these names, that name of Blighty does not seem to pinpoint one specific part of the nation. It seems different people have different opinions as to what you can and can't call Blighty. Some feel it can apply to the entire United Kingdom, while others feel it just applies to the island of Great Britain, while others even claim it should be used just for England. The Wikipedia page for Blighty defines it as a British English slang term for Great Britain, or often specifically England. So while it's a term with some wriggle room, it seems saying it's primarily a nickname for Great Britain would be too much of an outlandish claim. I can't quite imagine someone in Northern Ireland with the same affection for the term as someone in London will, though I'm sure there are Northern Irish people who will buck this trend. In this video, ease's sake, I'm going to refer to Blighty as a nickname for Britain, as that seems to be the most popular answer, though like most things involving the names in this country, it's a little bit more complex than that. Moving on, Blighty is a nickname for Britain that carries an awful lot of connotation. People don't really use Blighty interchangeably with Britain at any given moment. The name Blighty seems to be reserved for when talking about Britain in a certain light. Blighty is a term meant to evoke a certain image of Britain, an image I'm going to refer to as good old Britain. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, imagine typically British things and you'll start to understand. The green fields of England, red telephone boxes, a thatched roof pub serving ales brewed on site, fish and chips along the promenade, all that kind of stuff. It could be seen as a more modern version of the Merry England concept. Merry England is the idea of an idealised version of rural England, where everyone lives pastoral lives within nature, dancing around maypoles in a pre-industrial revolution way. It should come as no surprise to hear that the idea of Merry England heavily inspired J.R.R. Tolkien when it came to forming a homeland for his hobbits. The Shire in many ways is really just an idealised form of England, so it's quite funny that the closest they could get to a real world Shire was on the other side of the globe in New Zealand. Anyway, that's a massive tangent. Blighty is a name that has a very positive, pretty and pastoral image surrounding it. To call Britain Blighty is to cast it in a very good light indeed. Though despite having such a lovely meaning, Blighty is a name that came into being from a much darker time in British history, deriving from a time of British colonisation and gaining traction in wartime. Blighty is a name with a secretly dark history. The term of Blighty ultimately dates back to the British Raj, also known as Crown Rule in India. This was a time of human history from 1858 until 1947. in which the British Empire ruled over much of the Indian subcontinent. This period of history not only heavily shaped the nation of India into what it is today, but also led to the creation of other surrounding nations like Pakistan, Bangladesh and Burma, now called Myanmar. While British rule heavily shaped this part of the world, the Indian subcontinent also shaped Britain to an extent too, perhaps most noticeably in the words the subcontinent gave to the English language. In 1886, Sir Henry Yule and Arthur Coke Burnell published their dictionary called Hobson Jobson, a glossary of colloquial Anglo-Indian words and phrases. Anglo-Indian words are exactly what they sound like, words used in English that came from India, Hobson Jobson being one of these terms, meaning any kind of festival or entertainment. Hobson Jobson, however, is definitely not the most well-known of these Anglo-Indian words, however. Loads of more well-known words came to English from the subcontinent too, words such as bungalow, dungaree, shampoo, pyjamas, chutney, fug, loot, and hullabaloo are all seen as being Anglo-Indian words. And of course, if you haven't guessed by now, Blighty is yet another one of these Anglo-Indian words. Blighty is thought to ultimately come from the Urdu word of vilayati. This word initially meant foreign, however over time it came to specify a certain kind of foreign, first meaning anything European, then meaning anything British, then meaning anything English. At first this word was used as an adjective, being used to refer to things that arrived in the subcontinent via the English. One example I found was the term of vilayati bagan, which can be translated into meaning English aubergine, aka a tomato. So how exactly did vilayati become Blighty? Well, this happened in the same way the majority of these Anglo-Indian words took on the form they have to this day, by the British mishearing them, mispronouncing them, and adapting them so it's easy for their British mouths to say. I mentioned bungalow as one of these Anglo-Indian words. Well, in its initial Gujarati form, the word was bangalow, meaning a low thatched house. When the British got their mouths around this word, however, it came out as bungalow, and has stayed that way ever since in the language. It's believed that at some point during the British Raj, the word of vilayati would have been misheard as bilayati instead, starting with a B instead of a V. Instead of correcting their mistake, the British just ran with this B spelling, but why stop there? The British continued to corrupt this term, and eventually it took on the form of Blighty, though still maintained that meaning of relating to England and Britain. So it was actually pretty ironic in some ways that this term started life as actually being quite hostile. It was a word used by the natives of India to denote the British as outsiders and foreigners in their lands. However, the British made it their own, both changing how the word is spelled and pronounced, but also changing it into that term of endearment for the nation that it is today. Though, how exactly did this happen? What gave the name Blighty that image of good old Britain that it still conjures up to this day? Well, as I hinted towards earlier, this name of Blighty was popularised and cultivated that image on various battlefields throughout British history. The name of Blighty really started to gain traction during the Second Boer War, a war fought from 1899 to 1902 between the United Kingdom and two Boer republics of South Africa. The origins of this war seem to be convoluted and debated. What we really need to understand, however, is that these British soldiers would have been on incredibly foreign soil, terrain that would seem almost alien to them, and under the scorching South African heat. It was in these conditions that soldiers would start to miss their native, grey, miserable, rainy Britain, or Blighty as they started to affectionately call it. Blighty by now probably would have travelled back to the UK from India, or perhaps some of the British soldiers in the Boer War came directly from the subcontinent. The Blighty embers that sparked into life during the Second Boer War, however, became a roaring fire in the Great War of 1914 to 1918. This Great War, of course, retroactively became known as the First World War. It was in the cold, wet, muddy trenches of the First World War, with bombs and bullets flying over their heads, that many soldiers started to grow even more affectionate for the homelands they left behind. Britain could seem like a pretty miserable place at times, but it was for sure nicer than these trenches. This led to soldiers and others to start romancing and forming a more idealised form of Britain in their mind. And like the soldiers of the Boer War before them, they used that name of Blighty for this idyllic version of Britain in their minds too. This was also sparked on by war poets like Wilfred Owen using Blighty in his poems, and perhaps most noticeably in 1916, the song Take Me Back to Dear Old Blighty would have been sung in music halls throughout the country during the war. It was none other than homesick soldiers, whether they be in the blazing South African heat or in the depths of the trenches, that infused this term of Blighty with the image of an idealised Britain. And you know what? Who can blame them? One can only begin to imagine what life in those wars would have been like. It would definitely make any Brit deeply miss their home, regardless of what their life was like in Britain. Homesickness can do strange things to a person. The place we leave can often become deeply sentimental to us, whether you're a student moving to a new city or an expat moving halfway around the world. Having to leave your nation behind to battle in the deadliest war the world has seen up to that point will certainly have a profound effect on you and your thoughts on your home nation. And those profound effects manifested themselves in that silly old name for Britain of Blighty.
As I promised, I have a really exciting announcement to share with you all. Do you remember a few years ago I wrote the book The Origin of Names, Words and Everything in Between? Well, I'm beyond excited to announce that I've written a second book. With this second book being called The Origin of Names, Words and Everything in Between, Volume 2. Very creative, I know. But yes, I am back with a second book jam-packed with etymologies and fun facts and fun trivia. This book covers words from 15 different subject areas, from plants and trees to bodies of water to historic places to even websites. There's an awful lot of ground covered here on this book, and many names I probably won't ever explain here on the channel. There's even a whole chapter focusing on words that aren't names. Shocking, I know. And like with the first book, this book is broken down to short, easy to read and easy to understand sections full of fun facts, etymology, trivia and my unique brand of sense of humour. I think it's unique anyway, I think it's humour, I don't know, some people think I'm funny, other people don't. If you're a fan of my first book, this channel, or just language and words as a whole, then this is definitely the book for you. The Origin of Names, Words and Everything in Between of Volume 2 is coming on the 12th of October 2021 and you can pre-order your copy right now. There will be a variety of links down below that you can click for yourself to pre-order the book, and it'll be available in most places where you buy books from. However, the best way you can purchase this book is by going to Amazon and searching Word Origins book and clicking on the book that way. This really helps out Amazon's search engine and in turn allows even more people to discover the book. I really cannot wait for all you guys to read and enjoy my second book. It was such a thrill to write and really enjoyable to write and research, and I can't wait to share that excitement with you all. I'm so happy to be able to finally share this with you guys. Honestly, it's been fun this year writing it and it's out now. I'm rabbiting on too much now. Anyway, that's The Origin of Names, Words and Everything in Between, Volume 2. Go pre-order your copy now. Thank you all so much. Links down below, yada yada yada. Thank you all, take care, goodbye.
Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Patreon is vital to Name Explain, and donating just $2 a month allows you to enjoy ad-free videos and bonus Patreon exclusive content. It also allows you to help choose what names get explained in upcoming videos, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give Name Explain. Thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram where I'm Name Explain YT, and also join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain, both of which will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.